Hello, hello, DrawClass participators. What is up, my sweet patronies? How's everybody doing today? Hope you're all doing well. I'm ready for some critique. It's been a minute since we've done one of these. I'm excited to be back doing one. I'm completely unwarmed up because Julia's been a little sick, so I've been watching Felix a lot. But that's okay. I'm about to bring my energy. I'm going to rally my energy for this stream. And we're going to do some good-ass critique, and we're going to get inspired by each other's art, which rules. Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Excited to see all y'all here. We got a lot of submissions this time as well, which is always exciting to see. My goal, aside from doing good critique, is to not take 3.5 hours to do this. That's a huge goal of mine, is to hopefully we'll get it. We're gonna go for like a sub 3 hour run of critique stream. How will I do it, you ask? Well, maybe I'll try to focus on what you actually tell me to focus on, instead of just going off on tangents and doing whatever I feel like. Maybe that's what I'll try to do. But I'm thinking let's just jump right into it and get started. I'm ready to go. I got the Discord open here. The first contributor is Yenna, and I'm going to go ahead and post the art here in the thing. We got 2 pieces here. Discord, hello, Discord, hello. Oh, I see. This is a big one. This is a real big one. That's why. That's okay. I'm getting it. Here we go. Here we go. Oh my God, it's really big. They're saying it might be the biggest piece ever drawn. I'm sorry for the size I work at. You're totally fine. This is like Julia size. This is the size Julia works at. My canvas is already pretty big too, but it's got nothing on you. Are you a 600 DPI user? There we go. Let's get this down to a manageable, viewable size. Got a sick ass Wolverine character. And then we've also got this cool rabbit as well. Go ahead and paste that in there. Shrink her down, shrink her down. Yeah, these are sick. I like these a lot. All right, let's see what you said in your post here. You said, "Hi, Jacob. I've been working on a lot of character design recently for a project I'm working on. So here are 2 of those designs, one ref sheet and one portrait. Outside of designing, I've been trying to focus on consistency, trying to make sure I can quickly and accurately draw the same character multiple times, and on dynamic and interesting posing. I'm looking to start putting more work into rendering. I'm slightly happy with the way the rendering on the second picture came out, but I feel like every time I put time into rendering and shading, I'm relearning how to do it. Thanks." I totally feel you there, and I feel the same way oftentimes. But let's jump in. I feel like from a design perspective, I really like what you're working with here. I think the characters are very cool. Move this up here. Zoom in a bit. I like a lot the sort of like bold color blocked outfit choices, where you've got like the white pants, this like teal bluish covering here, and then the red of the scarf. I'm a big fan of characters that are color blocked out like that because it makes them very memorable from a visual perspective. And this character looks really cool too. I love the... I'm such a sucker for like a turtleneck flowy thing over the top of it. And then you got the little booty cheeks cut out on the side. Because you want to be, you know, deadly, but also have some sex appeal as well. Let's see. What did you need help on? Dynamic and interesting posing. Yeah. Well, this one on the left is, since it is a more of like a character standing there type of sheet, let's focus on the rabbit, I think. Because I think this is already a pretty cool pose. But I do think also maybe it could be pushed further. Because right now the pose is like really nice, but it's not, and I don't know if this was your goal or not, but it's not like indicating to me, is this character like about to beat my ass? Like, am I under attack? Is this a threatening pose? Is this like a neutral pose? Because right now it's reading kind of like a neutral stance, but I bet there's like some pretty dynamic poses with this type of weapon. I'm doing some looking here. Kusarigama poses. This is a Kusarigama, right? I bet there's some cool poses you could find. I'm seeing some right here. Hold, I'm looking. There's a lot of cool ones is the problem. More about showing off the design than pushing the pose hard, but I have since drawn him again in a similar but more pushed pose. Gotcha. Well, I do like this pose you did in terms of like a just showing off the design look. If we wanted to take a look, this is just a piece of pose reference here that I'm looking at. Something like this could be cool, like similarly neutral. This is more like holding a rope, but I think it's like very adaptable to your type of thing. Let's move this over, and I'll just do a touch of sketch. This will also be my warm-up sketch, so it'll be very helpful. But I definitely really like to find poses that are similar to what I'm looking for, and then adapt them to whatever I need. And I don't know like about your character or anything, but I do like stuff where they're like wielding the weapon. And I also, something I like about this pose is like the sort of head down sort of look, so it gives more of like an intimidating, threatening aura. If this character is meant to be threatening, which is kind of the vibe that I get. I get a threatening vibe. But like a pose that says, you know, this is it for you. And you could take like this lower hand here and have this be the one that's like holding the sickle. So it could be like a reverse grip, holding the sickle type of thing. Did I do this? Oh, I did it on a different layer. I'm a genius. I guess mostly just a reminder. This is a reminder to, you know, just go look at specific poses for like the types of things that you're looking for, and then try to adapt them to what you need. It's a very handy way to go about it. And then I love this where it's like the hand is just like holding it and it's kind of dangling. It would leave a lot of good room for compositional stuff. Like you could have it like flowing out this way with the ball with the ball. But this is just like, you know, some thought starters. And then you could even go foregrip here. Might even be better for composition. And then, you know, focus on like, see, I'm pushing as well because this pose is pretty straight up and down like this, but I'm thinking maybe we could push it more like this. Get some more like diagonal lines. Diagonal lines are always good for poses. We love diagonal lines here. I love these cutouts. These like leg cutouts. I think that's so sick. Oh, and then you got the sash thing. Hold on, let me move this here so I can draw. The sash thing is also great for composition because it can be billowing as well. So if this is billowing, we can have the sash also be billowing. Could even have, oh, maybe the ears are going that way too. I guess this is also an example of like how I operate in terms of my thought process when I'm working on pose and like composition, is that I do very much like start trying one thing and then adapt as you go. So maybe it's like a wind blowing in that direction. So the pants would be kind of billowing out that way as well. I don't know. This is kind of sick, actually. This is kind of fierce. I'm feeling the fierceness. And then rabbit feet, I'll tell you right now, that's not going to be my area of expertise personally. So I'm not even going to really attempt it. This one would probably be more turned forward. And then this would be more this way. Yeah, this is just like a little, you know, thought starter in terms of composition and in terms of posing. I really like what you have here, but if you wanted to get like more dynamic, you could, you know, start moving in directions like this and just think about how you can get like the main form of the character and then orchestrate things such as wind so that you can have things billowing out to the sides to create like visual points of interest. I think it is one thing in your original that could be improved upon is that you have so much cool fabric, flowing fabric, but it's not separated enough. There's like one bit of separation here, but it's not separated enough to create as many cool like visual points of interest on the figure. I think that you could use this because I really like the outfit design a lot. I think you could use this stuff to, it's just like free composition points. You can just make this stuff go wherever you want it to go and fill out the composition and I think it'd be sick. Hope that is helpful. I'm gonna go on to the next one. Really like your character designs though. Keep up the good work. Let me put all of these in a folder. Oh, you had other things you wanted. You had one other thing, which was the rendering thing. I actually only had one note about the rendering before moving on. And it's just that I really like the style of your rendering. Like the brushstrokey, watercolory kind of style. I just think you need to go darker in the shadows. I think that the light part and the dark part are too close together in value. And I do have my special values layer here. Specifically in this part on like the robe itself. Like these shadows here, when you have like the full sort of red blasting, they're very hard to see. So I would probably try making those a little bit darker. You could even try to bling. Maybe not bling. You could try to bring in a little bit of the blues that's kind of around it. Just as an example, if you wanted to like incorporate the blue, that could be in the shadows. If you wanted to. This is probably too dark, but I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna fix it, don't worry. This is just for example's sake. Kind of just these parts here where you have shadow. And like inside here, we'd make this a little lighter for sure. But then it could be like here to really sort of highlight some of these forms a little better. But I think that's really like the only thing that was standing out to me was I felt like it just needed a little bit more firm decision making in terms of where you're placing your shadows, and then making those shadows a little darker just so it pops a bit more. But yeah, awesome work. Once again, let's move on to the next one. We got So Eepy. Okay, so we got some portraits here, as well as the original pictures along with them. Yena said it never looks right to me when I push the shadows too dark, but I think it's just something I have to push through and it'll look more normal when complete. Yeah, that's a really, really common issue, and it's one that I had for a long time as well. And you are correct. It will look better when you are complete, and you can also then adjust the layer later like I did. If it still looks too dark to you, you can bring it down a bit, push it back a bit, but it's better to go darker starting out because you have to make more concrete decisions about where the shadows are. And I think oftentimes the shadows look weird because they're not quite right in terms of where they would fall on the figure. And when you do them really dark, it just makes it very obvious that it's not in the right place. But on the positive side, it's obvious that it's not in the right place. So then you can make your adjustments with the dark shadows and then pull them back if you need to. But let's take a look at these portraits here from So Eepy. I'm gonna copy this one in. These are very nice portraits. Please paste. Please paste. Please paste. Clip Studio, please paste. There we go. There's one. Well, let's start with this one, and I'll bring in the original photo as well. Copy image. Paste image. All right, let's see what you said. Both are painterly styled portraits of Eben Moss Bacharach and Fiona Dourif, respectively. Okay, they're still work in progress. Got it. While I'm proud of my work, I still can't help but feel that something is off with these pieces, and maybe it's the imposter syndrome creeping in. I guess what the advice critique I'm looking for is readability. Like, does my rendition of the person read as that person? Also, rendering technique, because while I do like the painterly feel the brushstrokes give, I know it can be quite distracting to those who come across it, and feel free to point out and critique anything else you may notice. Okay, sweet. Hold on, I got lost on my scroll. Okay, so let's take a look. I feel like with likenesses, and I think you're pretty close. I think you might be running into some similar issues with regards to light and shadow that are making it look less like the original. I think some of your shadows are too light, and then other of your shadows are too dark. So let's take a look here, because what I notice first and foremost when I look is that your version on the right here has more of a, like, his face looks rounder. Let me get a color you can see. His face looks like rounder, and his face over here looks more angled to me. And I think it's largely because of the shadow around the side of the face. Because if we take a look at the colors here, let's like pick a color from sort of the edge. If we're getting to the edge of the face here, near to the ear, this is a very, very dark and very saturated brown. nearing to black. And if we come over here and look in the same spot, you will see that yours is much, much lighter, and more desaturated as well. So I think, you know, you might be shying away from some of the darker tones that would appear around the edge of the face that would also make his face, shape his face more like it looks in the original. So we can see if we can't just mess with it a touch here, just for example's sake. I'm not the best painter, obviously, but I've also forgotten how to use the lasso tool. I've remembered how to use the lasso tool. Nobody panic. And we're just gonna make a selection around the edge. And we'll start here. Just sort of get the face. Because what I'm suspecting is, we'll take like a softer brush here, is that if we go in and darken up just around the edges here, that's already going to help it look more like the original. There's more around the chin as well. Yeah, I mean, that to me already actually makes quite a big difference in terms of just like contouring the face. And I'm definitely seeing just more of this sharpening the edges around the jawline, I think, stands out to me a lot as well. So that's something you could look into as well, just sort of reshaping subtly the contours of the face. And this trick where you can just like go in with the eyedropper tool, I do this all the time to make sure, because like when you look at what you've done, you're like, it looks like I'm going dark enough, but you got to check the actual color, because oftentimes your eyes will fool you and will play tricks on you, and you are actually not. I think similarly, you're not going light enough in terms of the highlights hitting the face. If we take like this highlight here on the forehead, we've got a color like this, which honestly looks crazy juxtaposed against the lightness of the background, but if I put it here, it looks really bright. And if we compare that to yours here, it's much closer, but yours is definitely darker and a little more saturated. So this is the kind of thing where you could push this element as well, of this like shiny area on the forehead, make it a little brighter. And let me get my soft eraser so I can carve out a little bit. Because this really sells sort of the shine of his face here. And the tip of the nose as well, it's like very prominent. The lightness of the flash of the camera is very prominent there as well. So things like that would help. I think the mustache area too, and beard areas generally speaking darker. So I guess my overall advice to you is to just check your values of things, like as you're going, maybe a little more regularly. And I think that's really gonna help. And I'm just like color picking here to make things move a little bit faster. I'm also noticing some areas like the eyes here. I think you've left a little too light underneath the brow, where over here it's actually much darker. You can see the comparison there. But yeah, underneath the eyebrow, this area will typically be shaded more. So we can get, my tendency is always to like zoom in and really get in there, but I don't want to do that because I don't have a million years. we go. My soft brush. Darken that up a little bit under there. So yeah, these are like the kinds of things you could be looking for. There's what's too light, what's too dark. And then my other trick that I will give you, I'm just going to darken the eyebrows a little bit, I think, as well. And we can do a little comparison check here. But you can see sort of the difference in matching sort of the vibe and lighting of the original piece. I think it makes quite a big difference to try and match some of those elements. Really great hand, by the way. I feel like I love the way you did this hand, actually. I was not looking at it, but this hand looks super nice. I love the rendering style. The way it applies to the hand really works for me. I think that's sick. Something else that might help you, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, is making the background of your piece the same color. You did it with the pole, but you should make the background behind him as dark as it is in the original piece, because that's going to affect the way you perceive the color changes. It'll make it more obvious. So we'll just do like a real quick and dirty lasso here. Quick and dirty. This will make it really apparent which things are not where they should be, because it's going to match more closely your reference material. And what color you choose to put things on will greatly impact your perception of the colors you're using. So that'll make it clearer straight off the bat as well. Let's see, what else was I gonna say? I had something else I was gonna say. Oh, I remember what it was. The other thing you can do, the jacket's like clearly unfinished, so I'm not gonna go into the jacket because it's like work in progress. I was gonna say, and maybe you also did this to a degree, but the overlay method, after I try to draw a likeness, I usually like to superimpose one image over the other image to see where I'm like mistaken. So it's going to be a little tough to look at for a second here while I get it worked out. This looks terrifying at the moment, but we want to get it close here. Okay, yeah, it's looking like you did also overlay as well, because we got everything in the right position, which is nice. So that gets you really close. But I always like to check, because you can have tendencies to do things a certain way. Like I usually have a tendency to make every character I draw too short and stocky compared to the reference material. I always for some reason go shorter and stockier. But yeah, I think that's all I've got for you right now. I hope that helps. Check on your values and your shadows. And I think there's even more you could do here in terms of like contouring the nose a bit more, and definitely underneath the chin. Darkening this area will make his jaw look sharper. But yeah, awesome work. I really like what you got going here. I don't think I have time to do the second piece, but I will tell you that I like it. and then we're going to move on to the next person. Thank you so much. Okay, let's see who we got next here. This is Ghosty. Let's get the pieces in here. You spoilered one because it's got spider tattoo, SIGs, and man in boxers, but I think that's going to be okay to show. So we're gonna put it in. Let's copy this one in. This is very cute. Discord, like when I tell you to copy it, just copy it. You don't have to like make me do it twice. Very cute pose. I like this a lot. And then we'll get this one as well. Pretty much the opposite vibe of the first one. This is like me on the weekend, me when it's Monday. I feel like you could use these for like lots of different meme images. Me when I'm at the event, me remembering how I acted at the event later. Okay, let's see what you said. These are two pieces I'd like critiqued. I struggle with rendering. It's my least favorite part, but I like the way it looks. Any tips on how to make the way these are rendered would be great. For the Pokemon one, the shading style seems too simple using the monocolor and hard brush, but the second image seems too muddled, where I've used a more painterly brush and multiple colors. I cannot seem to find a middle ground for rendering that looks nice. Totally, I got what you're saying. And also the perspectives aren't great, so any advice for that would be nice, but if not enough time, just the rendering would be helpful. Got it. Okay, cool. Let's take a look. We'll start with the Pokemon piece, because you said like the hard line rendering like felt too simple to you. I think it actually looks pretty nice. Very good hands, by the way. This is a tough foreshortened set of hands right there. Why don't we take a look at the way Pokemon renders things? Pokemon anime. You think it mostly looks weird on the face? I totally get that. And I think I can probably tell you why that is as well. Using an example from Pokemon, the show. Pokemon, the show. Here we go. So oftentimes when you are, here we go. Here's a pic from Pokemon. Pokemon to show. If you're trying to emulate the rendering style of like an anime, like Pokemon specifically, you'll notice if you look at the show, they don't actually shade very much at all. They do use hardline shading, but it's only used in like a couple of key places. Excuse me. If we take a look at Ash here, he's only shaded underneath the hat and then underneath his head, where his head would cast a shadow on his body, and then inside of the sleeves to show that like the sleeves are standing out from the arm. So they basically look at where the biggest shadows would be, and then that's the place that they shade, and then nowhere else. And that's what gives it that very bright, bubbly, poppy style. Like Pikachu is not really shaded at all, other than right here in this little arm crevice and on the inside of the mouth. So you could try applying this type of thing as well into your work for your rendering style. I noticed you also use like colored lines as well, which is totally cool and fine. The show typically just uses thin black lines. You could also experiment with that. But it could be good to just try doing a very flat shading style. You said I wasn't mimicking the style, but TBH, since I don't even like rendering, it'd probably be better. Yeah, totally. Like, even if you're not mimicking the style, I feel like it's good to look at, because like the vibe I get from your piece is very like poppy and fun and like bright. So it's a good style to look at for the type of thing that you're doing here. Something we could also do is look at like the color choices they use, because I think I think some of your color choices might be a bit dark. Like a little too dark and saturated for like a bright daytime piece. So let's take a look here, because we got like the red of your jacket here is quite dark and saturated. But if you have a jacket like this outside in the bright sunlight, it's gonna look more like the red over here on like Ash's shirt. It's gonna be much more brighter and blown out. So I would recommend for like an outdoor scene, try to stay like in the top half of like the color thing here, except for like the very deep shadows. And that will give you like that vibe a lot better. So like if we, and similarly with the shading on the face too, if we compare this color to the color of shading on Ash's face. So there's a big saturation difference. Your shading is much more saturated, whereas the shading from the show is a lot further to the left on the saturation. If you look down here at this thing is what I'm looking at. And oftentimes in bright sunlight, Ash is tanner as well, yes, but that's irrelevant to the point I'm trying to get at, which is that when you're out in bright sunlight, a lot of colors get a lot more washed out than they would be otherwise. And so they're going to be less saturated in that lighting scenario. I think specifically like the buildings back here too, like this color is very, very dark for a bright outside sort of scene. So yeah, those are some things you could try. My throat is like, excuse me, getting so tickly. But yeah, I think if you tried some of those things and then reduce the overall amount of shadows, because if you're outside like this in the sunlight, there's going to be less shadows in general, like falling on you. Like if you look at my face right now, I've got, you know, lights here and here. And there are no like harsh shadows really on my face in this lighting scenario, which is kind of similar to a being outside lighting scenario. It kind of washes out most of the facial shadows. So if you stick to something more like this, I think it might work a lot better for you. But I really like the piece though, in general. I think it's very cute. And I just think with like some subtle tweaks and changes. The other thing is you were talking about like just doing the hard line style versus like muddying, like having the muddy result of having like the soft and hard shading. But if you look at this Pokemon piece as well, they've got one of my favorite things going on, which is just a big old gradient. I do want to clarify too in chat, fits of inspiration, you're totally fine. You don't need to be quiet going forward. I got what you were saying. It's no problem whatsoever, so don't worry about that. They got this big gradient over the top here that also implies like a brightness of a sunny day. And I will show you a little bit of that as well. It's sort of like a bluish, brightish bluish. And this is something I do all the time, which is just slap a big gradient on top with like a layer style, like a soft light or hard light. You can experiment with the layer style. But if you put something like this, it'll brighten up the top of the image. And it might not look like much, but it really does. It serves to push back the tops of these buildings more because they get lighter. Which draws more focus to the character, and it also gives you more a sense of like being outside because the blue of the sky is being reflected onto the buildings in the background. And it doesn't muddy things up. I think it makes it look makes it look more cohesive even. So little tricks like that. You can take example from professional work is always a good idea, even if it's not like you said, it's not the exact style you were going for. But like looking at the tricks that they did to make this effective and applying that to your work can be a really good way to go about it. Yeah, okay, let's take a look real quick at the other piece. Where did I put that one? There it is. So yeah, this one you were saying you felt like it got a little muddy with like the varying styles. And I see what you mean. I think it might be a little bit of like not going hard enough in any particular direction. Excuse me. Because you did some like strokey stuff here, like paint stroke stuff, and on the face a bit. But then there's like not any in this like other sections of the piece. So I think it's kind of one of those things where if you want to go really painterly with the strokes, you kind of have to commit to applying it to the full piece, which can Jesus, which can really be tough to do because it's time consuming and then it might not even work in the end, and so it's a little scary. But I do think that this is a case of like some indecision paralysis, and that can make it look a little bit confused. I think a good thing to do if you're not sure about rendering and you don't really like it, which means you're like me, is to focus on the hard line shading, like hard and soft line shading. Like I like what you kind of did here with the leg, try and do like a hard line, soft line. And then use sparingly larger gradients and bigger soft brush areas to add like mood and tone and color cohesiveness. So I think keeping it simple like that, be like, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to add in hard shadows, hard highlights, and then find some big areas to do a big soft shading in. I'm not going to be able to do it, y'all. I'm dying. I'm perishing. I'm not going to be able to do the class. To give you an example of like the kind of thing that I might do, I would usually find an area like, for instance, this arm, which I think you did a pretty good job on, but I'm going to show you. I'm just going to give you like an example by unshading the arm and then reshading it. Because you kind of were already headed this direction, but I'll just kind of show you to illustrate what I mean. I would look at something like this arm and I would be like, arm is a tube, and tube have shading, tube have soft shading because it's round. So the light kind of, you know, gradients around the cylindrical object. So if you wanted to use soft shading, arm that is tube would be a great place to do it. So we'll just take this color, use kind of what you're already using. So I would probably go in and be like, let's apply just like a big gradient, a big soft gradient to get like the shape of the arm. Ignore this like crappy part here. This is just for the sake of example. Then I would probably be like, is there anywhere on this where it would have a hard shadow? Like perhaps this area leading into like the armpit area, which I might go darker to indicate that this is like a harder shadowed area. And then I would be like, is there any place on this, you know, it looks a little funky, but you get the impression of what I'm going for here. Is there any place that might have a very hard highlight on it? And since you have a light shining in through the window and it's dark in here, I would probably go with like a rim light on the outer edge of the arm with a harder brush. something like this to show like the light, you know, coming in and hitting. And it also serves to draw attention to the figure as well. And you can apply little highlights like that to anything where that harsh outside light would be touching. So try to look for areas that would be like a large rounded area you can soft shade. Areas of deep shadow you can hard shade, or where there would be like a harsh shadow, like underneath a nose, or like if I have my hand like, see if I can illustrate this, my hand like this, where it's like shadowing my palm from my finger, or underneath the chin, hard shadow. Or if you have an area that could use a large highlight, you can rim light it or spotlight or something like that. And anything that's like a surface like skin that could be shiny, you can apply that to it as well. But try to think of it in like simple terms like that. If you want to do it in a different order, that's fine. This is the order I usually do it in. And then of course I like to go in and just like apply some gradients over the top as well, as I've shown previously, like maybe I would have, and you kind of already did this with this piece. It looks pretty good lighting wise, but I'm always going in and doing like, if we can't, doing like, let's just make all this darker and then adjust it. And then let's get like the bright color here, and let's make another layer, and let's make all this brighter. Make the window pop a little bit in the figure. And you can just go around and futz with stuff like this, and it's just like fun to mess around with, and can also really like provide a cohesion to your piece with relative ease. But yeah, I hope that all helps. Good luck with all your stuff. I think your work looks really cool, and I think you're heading in the right direction. You just gotta like solidify like what your angle is when you're doing a piece like this, and then like commit to one style of rendering, and be like, I'm gonna do the whole piece like this, and I'm gonna learn something at the very least. Okay, put all that in there. And we'll go to the next one. This is Renoa. Let's see what we got here. We have like a comic page here. Very moody, vibey comic page. I like it. And then we have another piece here. Oh, this is also cool too. Cool composition on this one. I love the cutouts and like punch-ins here. That's like very exciting. Okay, let's see what you said. Hello, these are two pieces I'd like some critiques on. I've never had any real instruction, so I don't really know what I'm doing, and I'm also really into art and comics, which I don't think is a good combination, and I feel like I'm always missing fundamentals when it comes to know how to structure a page and the rules to follow. I'd love any comic-shaped thoughts, but also just any thoughts at all, because I know everything else could use some work too. Yeah, totally. I think for having no instruction and not knowing what you're doing, you're already doing a great job. Because I think you're making some really like interesting and fun choices, which I really like. Let's take a look at the comic page first. The first thing I will say is one of the choices I like that you're making that I think is cool is stuff that you're doing with paneling. I think is really fun. I like how you have the hair like breaking the panel and cutting in across this. I will say with choices like that, try to be very intentional with them and be like, do it in a way where it's like, I think this is a good example because the face is a very impactful expression, and you're like, it draws your attention over to that face, which is supposed to like hit really hard. I'm assuming this look is like, seems like an impactful part of the page. What was I gonna say? I remember what I'm gonna say. And this is a Jacob classic, but I will reapply it here. The font, while very pretty, it's got to be different because legibility is like insanely important for comics. And you want your comic to be so easy to read that like someone who's a little too far away could read it. Someone whose eyesight's not great could read it. Someone with, you know, dyslexia, it's easier for them to read it. You want to be able to like make it available to the largest possible audience, and having it be very legible from a phone. That's a good example too. Small screen, big screen. Having it be very legible is a great way to get more eyes on the comic. Because if people are like looking online or scrolling and they see a comic that they can't immediately and easily read, that's like a percentage of people you're losing who might just scroll on past. So I would definitely change that. But that's an easy change. The other thing comic-wise I would work on here is, I think there's a bit of confusion for me with the two characters in terms of, because the what's the phrase I'm looking for? You have like a shifting back and forth, like shot, reverse shot. That's what I'm thinking of. Like when you're watching a movie and two characters are talking, they're always like on the same side and facing the same way, so people don't get confused about which character is which or what they're looking at. And so I think there's like a thing going on here where you have this character who's facing this way, but then down in this panel it looks like her body's flipped the other way and is turning around, and so it's a little confusing spatially as to where she is. And since the characters look similar to one another as well, that I think that adds to the confusion too. So you want to be very firm with yourself on placing them on the same side each time in a conversation. Let's see if I can find like a example. Yeah, the 180 degree rule. That's exactly what I was trying to think of. Thank you. I would say your name, but it's like a string of letters and I can't parse them, but you are correct. Let's see. Let's find a good example here. One sec. Okay, I got one here. This is just literally a random manga page that I found on Google, but it does show the example. If we take a look at this page, which is basically exclusively two characters conversing, you will notice that they've got, this guy here is on the right side facing left, and this woman is on the left side facing right. And then as we go through the page, so we scroll down here, the perspective's totally different, but this guy's still on the right facing left, and she's still on the left facing right. We come down here, he's still on the right facing left, she's still on the left facing right. Like the camera angle's changing all the time, and yet they always are on the same side and always facing the same way, vaguely. As we move on here, he's on the right facing left. They've gone completely behind him, but he's still on the right facing left, and she's still on the left facing right. And that continues on down here. He's facing left, she's facing right. He's facing left, she's facing right. It just makes it so there's no way to get confused about the scene changing without you realizing. And the 180 degree rule that was being referred to is like, you imagine that there's a 180 degree like line like going through the scene, and your camera can't like cross around that threshold. Like it always has to be on the one half of the scene. You don't want to go around behind, because then they're going to be flipped and it's going to confuse the viewer. So I hope that made it more clear, showing it in action like that. So those are just a couple comic things that I highly recommend. I do like, however, I think you've got like the panel pacing down very nicely of like talking shot, reacting shot, talking shot, reacting shot, and then a pullback like impact shot. I think that's a very good comic pacing, very effective. And then taking a look at this other one real quick, there's a lot that I really like about this. I think the composition of this is really sick. And I love how you have the foreground character like shadowed and then this bright circle right behind them with this character that your eyes are drawn to, along with all of these like reaction panels. The only thing I would do here, and I think this is both a legibility and a compositional thing, is you have a lot of there's a lot of like blank space around here, and then some of this, the details of these are getting lost because they're too small. So like probably what I would do if it were my page is I would just make a lot of the reaction shots larger, because you just have a lot of real estate that you could be utilizing. And so you don't want to like distract obviously from the point of the scene, but you do want all of this stuff to be really legible. And then if it's occupying more space, you have less blank space in your composition as well. So I would not that big, certainly not that big. I would just make a lot of this bigger. To really like sell some of the reactions here as well. Because especially some of these up here, it's like hard to tell what's going on in them just because they're too small. There's no object to transform. I actually don't agree with you. I actually think there is an object to transform. Just to get a bit more legibility out of this stuff. And you could like rearrange them sort of however you needed to make that happen. But it's just so you can better tell what is happening in these tiny panels. But really sick composition and like layout. I really like the composition of the characters. I think is really, really nice. I saw Reiko F in chat said, if you're interested in comics, Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics is a good book to understand how comics work. It mostly covers American style comics, but many observations hold for manga as well. I fully agree on that. I feel like it's in many ways like the Bible of comic making, and also the book itself is a comic, which is really sick. Like teaching about comics in a comic format, I think was like a stroke of genius from him. And we actually met Scott McCloud at like a Mocha Fest like years and years ago, like back before Drawfee was like anything, a really early Mocha Fest. He came up to our table and was just like asking us about the channel and chatting with us, and he was so nice. Okay, that's going to be all for that. And I should clarify too, like he was asking us about the stuff and was so nice, and like literally Drawfee had like no following back then. Like we were completely unknown and he didn't know who we were, and yet he still just like came up and was like being chill, and I was like, you're Scott McCloud. Sorry, just gotta tell you, just gotta let you know. Okay. Next one. We got Bloom Crane. I remember you from last time, Bloom Crane. Let me copy these images. This is really sick looking. Yeah, I really liked your stuff last time too. And I still do. You got a really like unique vibe to your work that I find very cool. Really neat use of like little textures too. I like the textures. All right, let's see what you're asking here. I'm mainly looking for critique on how to make the characters readable and consistent throughout the work. Also, for the second drawing, I'm not sure how to make the soldiers grounded in reality, having actual chest rigs and backpacks in addition to armor, without detracting from the sci-fi soldier vibe. I see what you're saying. So you're worried about like adding too much realism might detract from the sci-fi. As far as making characters readable and consistent throughout the work, to start there, I feel like you kind of got that on lock, because this dude is, I'm going to know that this dude is this dude every time I see him. When I see the Admiral, I'm going to know it's the Admiral if he looks like this, for sure. Unless you got a whole bunch of other guys that look like this, then I think you're set there. I feel like the soldier could maybe use a little more like distinction, and I do think like your idea to ground them in reality would be a cool touch. Let's see if we can't find like some reference to kind of play with. If I just Google sci-fi soldier, let's see what kind of stuff pops up. Lots of stuff. See if we can't find like a good example of what the type of thing we're thinking about. Hold, I'm looking. Because I want to find something like distinctive. Helldivers would be a good ref, like disposable soldiers. I got you. So they're not supposed to be that distinctive because they're disposable. I am seeing here, let's see, this is a, let me see who made this before I start showing it off. This is like a 3D model asset pack by Temka 1A. They got like a lot of soldier stuff in here. Let's find a good example. Because I feel like you could do something like this. I'm trying to screenshot here. There's like these ways to add complexity to what looks like a like soldier bits that you could add. I think looking into some of this stuff and like these like sort of detailed, like it's kind of like detailed nonsense, but there's just like stuff like stuff screwed on there that like makes you feel like it's doing something. And like you don't have to know what it does. But putting on stuff that looks like it's doing something, it can be very convincing. And sci-fi armor is like not my specialty at all. But let's just try like messing around with you know, some of this kind of thing. If you just add some more like bits. And there's like lines. It looks like it's ventilating for some reason. And maybe you're like the type of person who would want it to be like it was tangibly doing something. In which case you should probably research like real life soldier gear and just like see. But I feel like you can't go wrong with just slapping a bunch of stuff on there and being like, yeah, it does something. It's the future and you don't need to know any more about it. And you could like justify narratively what the stuff does too, if you so desired. But I like that it just has like a bunch of textures, like there's just like holes in parts of it. And it's kind of just to add the like illusion of complexity. Just like armor bits. Little like vesty stuff. Soldiers always have vesty stuff. They've got a vested interest. Yeah, you got some of it down here. Like some of this stuff is kind of what I'm talking about. Like these like 3 like triple layers here. But I feel like if you're doing sci-fi, you have like a layer of plausible deniability where you can just like get away with just putting stuff on it. And you did it too with these tubes. I feel like the tubes are really good. So you could maybe, if you wanted to go like, you know, backpack mode, like backpack with, you know, the tubes coming out, could be sick. As though it's like feeding something. Can I get like a real eraser? But I think that, and again, it really depends on the aesthetic of your world and everything. But if you want them to look more grounded, I think just more stuff, just putting more stuff on them is gonna like help a lot. Because in real life, when I see soldiers, they're just like covered in stuff. And I'm not the type of guy to like fully know what all that stuff is doing. Could even have a tube going into like the back of the head. Doing something, God knows what. But I think if you add more stuff, they're going to look more like they're soldiers and they've got like a job that they're doing. That's the best I got for this. I think your work looks sick though. And I love this like floating mask thing you've got for the Admiral. I think that's very evocative. I like it a lot. Thank you for submitting again, and good luck with your work. I think, yeah, put more stuff on them. Stuff those guys up. Let's see who we got next here. Larissa. Let's get the pieces in here. These are cool. I like these. Let's see. Discord's gonna make me copy it twice. Classic Discord. Cool lighting on this. Then we got one here. Okay, let's see what you said. I decided to join because I felt like here I could get good and respectful pointers. You absolutely can. I love to give good and respectful pointers. Piece 1. I really like this one, but I also really get frustrated with this one. It feels off to me, but I cannot figure out exactly why. I was trying out a lighting scenario I haven't used before, and I struggled at the end finding a place to finish. So I had to stop to not overwork it, but got any ideas? And then for piece 2, I'm struggling with hard shadows on skin and fabric. I keep wanting to blend them like the rest of my shadows. I can do it on metal, liquids, and obviously shiny things, but on skin and fabric, I cannot stop blending them. For example, his pecs. I think I cannot visualize the hard lights with how I draw and how to make it harmonize. Also, I've regressed into Chad jawline territory and I gotta break out of it, LOL. That's really funny. Yeah, let's take a look. Let's start with piece 1 here. I do think the lighting is really cool. I feel like something that jumps out to me is just like general facial anatomy stuff. I think there's like a little bit something with the eyes that like doesn't quite jive with like facial anatomy placement, and maybe the nose as well. I think I know why as I look at it here. I'm just gonna do a, you said I could redline, so I'll just go over the top here and try to see what it is. So we got the head shape is here. The jawline is here. Okay, so if we have the middle of the face is looking this direction, yeah. Yeah, if we see like the way that the face would be, and we'll go around here like this. Like this, let's see. With the angle that the face is, the bridge of the nose, which you have right here, is too far to the right. With the angle of the face, the nose bridge should be further this way. If we have like the brow here, then the nose should be further out like this. To fit with just the angle that the head is turned at. Then we got another brow over here. And then I think, let's see. The eyes might be a little too far apart. I think it would be a little bit closer this way. Even if they are like, you know, they're like large eyes, obviously. And then I think this one might be, turn this off for a sec. So I can see how I would be foreshortening this. Yeah, because if it's the kind of thing where if I'm looking at it without your drawing there, and I'm just placing things where I think they should go, this is like the nose. Then I would have one of the eyes here. This is also a game I like to play, where you turn off like an element of your piece and then visualize like where you think the other piece should go, like put it in and then turn yours back on and see where it is. Because I'm like, if this eye is here, then the other eye, I would probably do something like this. Because it would be, they're kind of like far apart eyes, so it might not be obscured by the nose. But I think that's where I would think that it should be. And like foreshortened a touch like this. But if we turn back on, you can see that it's like higher up than that. I think that's what's bugging me about it. So yeah, I would look at maybe some reference just for like facial structure, eye and nose placement stuff. But I think this was like maybe Sam Does Arts. Maybe it was one of his tricks. Was like a cover the element and then imagine where it would be. I think like the way that he did it, if it was him, I don't remember where I learned this, was that you can literally like do it like this, like like cover it up and leave it covered for a while and then be like, okay, and then come back to it and be like, where do I think the eye would be? And then reveal it and be like, oh, it's not quite where I thought it would be. Then that's like a way to refresh the way that you're seeing it, like get fresh eyes on the image again, so that you're not like stuck with, you know, the same old like brain patterns. So it's just a nice way to look at, to get a fresh perspective. But let's look at the lighting though a little bit. Because I do really like your lighting, but I would love to look at like a similar lighting scenario. Is there like a word for this lighting scenario? Hard lighting. Let's see. I'm seeing some similar stuff here. You had a ref for the lighting? Oh, do you want to post your ref in the Discord? I would love to look at it. I will take a look once you pop it in there. Because I'm seeing a couple examples here that could be similar. I'm gonna go ahead and collect these as well while I'm at it, just because they're cool. And I think they also illustrate some other ways you could go about it, perhaps. And then I will also check the Discord. For whenever. Oh, there it is. Thank you, thank you. Okay, yeah, let's get that in there for sure. That's a cool one. Cool reference. Yeah, I see what you mean, where you had to like try to do something like totally different with it. Which can be tough. Let me move everything here. Okay. Make a new layer. Let's take a look at the ref here. So one thing I'm noticing straight off the bat that's different between this ref and your drawing that might help is that this, because the light is being cast, it would help if I could draw on top of this. The light is being cast like from the top right, and it's the same in yours as well. And because it's coming from the top right like that, there's going to be shadows cast over here on this side of the face. Because the light shouldn't be able to light the entire face all the way around if it's coming from such an extreme angle. So something I would definitely try to do. Hold on, Julia's asking me if I want tea. Yes, please. Throat coat. My throat needs coated. Something I would try to do is to shade some more of that. You got like some shading down here. So I would take like the shading you got on the chin here maybe. And then try to apply some of that. And you know I'm busting out my soft brush. When I'm shading big areas or like experimenting with shading, I usually really like to do like a lasso tool and then just plop some soft shading in. Thank you, thank you. She's coming to save me. Because then it's looking like the nose also casts shadow. And then under the lip as well. This is also helpful to visualize like blocking in an area of shading. So then I'll take my big soft brush. I will make a multiply layer. Whee! And we're going to make that much darker. I honestly think that already helped a lot, aside from my little lasso fuck up. But I think just that made it look way more convincing to me. It's kind of crazy how that works, because this is sloppily done too. but I think it actually helped a lot. I would probably go back in and like, you know, fix up some of these, so it doesn't look so doo-doo. And then you can also experiment with like making some of the, like you did some of the softening of lines as well. But I think just something like that honestly helps quite a bit. And then like in your reference, obviously her clothes are completely obscured in shadow. But if you wanted to like take example from like something like this piece over here, you could also add a secondary light source if you were interested in doing like some bounce light or some rim lighting, like some dimmer rim lighting, dim rim lighting. Just as an example, if there were like pieces of it that you didn't want to get so lost, or you wanted to keep some of the contouring. Hey, what about a soft light? Soft light ain't gonna do it, bud. Hard light will do it. You could do something like this, which I think serves to like showcase the form of the head a bit more so you don't get lost. Like you could reserve it for areas where you're losing that detail. Like I would probably put some on this like arm as well, if it were me. But I'm also just like a little freak for rim lighting, so. Woohoo! Something like that could be cool. In any case, yeah. And then color theory for mood if you wanted. Yeah. But really cool piece. I really like it. I hope that this this helps. And also just helps you to like see, like take notice of these like big light and shadow shapes. I think that's like the most important thing that people often overlook because they get bogged down in the details too soon. But on something like this, like these big shadow shapes, you want to nail those down first before you're getting into like any detail of shading, because these are like what sell the entire illusion of the piece, is like these big chunks. Like I just did with my lasso tool, just like chunking out the area and trying to match it to this is a very good way to go about it. There was one other piece you had as well that we'll do very quickly. This one. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me scroll back up real quick. Just do this fast. Hard shadows on skin and fabric. So it really kind of depends on where you're putting the. Let me start the sentence over. It really kind of depends on the quality of the skin, like the texture of the skin and the condition, as well as what type of fabric. Oh my God, excuse me. What type of fabric you're using. Because if you're blending the shading on a fabric like a shirt, that makes sense because it likely would not have hard shadow because of the way fabric disperses light. But on the skin, if the skin is like got some sheen to it, you wanted this to be one of those shiny polyesters. I got you. Well, let's take a look. You put the wrong tea in my mug. What tea is this? Julia not to the rescue. Julia's done the opposite of rescue.
I just woke up.
She gave me the wrong tea. Now I got to use this this mug that won't keep my tea hot. This is the worst day of my life. I'm gonna look up Shiny fabric. Let's take a look at shiny fabric. Let's see how it looks right now. So we can get a good example. Let's see, let's see. Okay, here we go. We can use this. The frames do look very nice, I agree. I mean, I think this whole piece looks very nice. But if you're wanting shinier fabric, I think we have to like look at what sells the illusion of shininess. And I think what sells the illusion of shininess, if we look at some of these ridges here, is that this is literally white where the light is hitting the peak of this ridge. And then it goes pretty much hard line into this slightly more saturated color, and then straight from that, like off a cliff into this much darker color. And so I think this like triple gradation here would definitely be something to look at. Also the fact that like within the darkest parts, there are these bounce lights like on the inside where it's like lighter. There's bits of lightness inside of the darkness, much like in all of our hearts, Kingdom Hearts. So I would try to, it looks like you got, like this is pretty much white. It's going to be a little hard. Olive, you can't be here. I'm sorry. You just can't be here. You got like the white part here. But then, let's see. I would go for like a harder line. We want something like this brush. Where am I? Here I am. Go from like the, like if we're saying that this right here is like the peak, just try to emulate this like fabric where it goes from that into something like this. And then it goes straight off the cliff into something much darker. And then there's like this pure white highlight at the top. So it's got all these different like distinctive layers, and you can blur them together a bit for sure. You don't have to like what am I saying? Who am I? Oh, we're gonna make this whole thing darker here, and then we'll refuts. But if we want it to be shiny, it's got to have very stark areas of light and dark. And then we got to remember the light within the darkness, of course. So we can have it go really dark, and then we just want it to be like slightly lighter. You know, in like some of this where it can be like this and lighten back up. And then we can blur some of this together. Certain areas only. But I think something like that, I realize now it's like behind the fucking thing. Something like that, I think, sells the illusion of shininess a lot better. And then also anywhere like, because of course I've set up a rim lighting scenario once again. We're going to rim light it over here too. And then we can do the same thing. We can get this color. This. And then we can take our little blurby and we can blur some of this together. But I think like the hard and soft lines really sell it. Yeah, what do you think about something like that? I feel like this, to me, looks like a lot more of a shiny fabric. And it's just from looking at this over here, zooming in on it and being like, what is literally happening? Like, I need to change what my brain is like thinking it looks like, and instead look at like what it literally is. Not like how I imagine it is, but how it literally is. And then like try my best to apply that to the piece. And I think that works quite well. So yeah, you can always find like a piece of reference and then try to like take the techniques from the reference and utilize them in your own piece as best you can. But thank you for your submissions. These were great. We'll move on to the next one. I'm going to try to go faster. I'm literally like doing just as bad as I always do. Can I just say that? I've literally learned nothing. Okay. Flavorham Lincoln, let's get your pieces in here. I gotta say right out the bat, huge fan of a character called the Betrayer. That's a knight guy called the Betrayer I love. This is like my shit right here. We got the Betrayer and the Awakened. I love it. Fun design on this guy. Let's see what you're asking for here. Hi, Jacob. I'm not a very practiced artist and not very far in my art journey, so I know my fundamentals need some work. That's why I'm mainly looking for general critique on what things work overall versus need work and how to make things more visually interesting. For that, I'm sending a set of 2. These were, let's see, the henchmen of my main villain, a circle of undead death knights. Traditionally, death knights are paladins that broke their oath and became evil. So they got lore around their broken oath. I always find myself struggling with effective shading and highlights, so you'll see that pop up a lot. Shout out to OCs and Avoid with the geometric shape. You're so real for that, actually. Putting an OC and Avoid with a shape is something that artists do of every skill level. And looking at these, you are definitely right about like, you know, needing some fundamentals work, but that's like an easy fix, an easy hard fix. It's conceptually an easy fix, but it takes a long time. Of just looking at lots of reference and trying to learn from the reference, especially of knights, of art of knights, concept art of like knight characters would probably be really helpful. Like any like Dark Souls concept art. Let's see, character concept art. Can I find any of that? This kind of thing. This is very small, but this kind of thing can give you some really good ideas. Because if you really want to draw knights, that's like a whole separate thing. You got to learn about armor and layering and all that kind of thing. And these are pretty complicated characters. I do want to say though, I do think your art has a lot of charm to it. And I feel like you got the stuff. You got the stuff inside of you to be good at this, because I already like the character designs, even like at a simple level of execution. I think the character design is very fun and cool. Let me go back to what you asked. You were asking for critique on shading and highlights. Yeah. And what things overall need work. Yeah, I think mostly what needs work is just like general sort of anatomy stuff, which will come with time, obviously, but just to like show you some examples so you know what I'm talking about. There's a couple like tricks that are helpful to know. Like generally speaking, the elbow of a humanoid character will fall like right at the sort of like right at the waist. Let me like stand up. Here's my elbow. This is like the bend of my waist. If my arm is down, if I wasn't wearing a hoodie, it would be easier. If my arm is down, the elbow kind of falls right where the waist bends. So in this case, your elbow is too high up. So the elbow would kind of fall like right around here instead. Another thing is you can generally draw like a line from knee to knee, from knee to shining knee. So these like knee plates could be on the same plane. Since the knight is standing like facing you directly, they would be like on the same plane. But overall, your proportions aren't like too bad. I feel like you got like a good start here. It's just like little things you need to work on. And it's the kind of thing too that like once you see, like you said, oh, you're so right, I have him little T-Rex arms. Like once you see it, it like becomes so obvious. And then like the more you get used to seeing it, the easier it becomes to notice in your own drawings every time. Let's see if I can find like a human proportions reference. See if there's like a good one here. Hold. I'm looking. This one's pretty decent and pretty simple. Take a look at this real quick. This is obviously very generalized. Not everyone is going to have these same proportions, but it's like a starting place. So you have like a template to then be like, now I can make adjustments to make it look like however I want. But this is taking like the general sort of advice that most people are around 8 heads tall. So like if you take the height of the head and then you go 8 times, that's going to be like the entire length of the person typically. Obviously you can stylize it differently, but this is like a naturalistic human proportion in a general sense. And then things like this where like the shoulders will kind of be in between like this head length. The elbows are going to be resting kind of on this head length. The wrists are going to be like on this vertical here, or horizontal, I mean, and they kind of almost align with like the hip bones. Knees are going to be right here on this line. Stuff like this, if you can internalize it, will become very helpful to you just for like a general guide of where stuff should go. So good thing to remember. I just really like this guy. I keep looking at him and I'm really compelled by this fellow. I gotta be honest with you. As far as like light and shadow goes, since you mentioned that as well, I actually quite like the like bold and simple shadowing. It's honestly similar to the Pokemon image from earlier, like the way you've shaded. You've shaded just like the critical shadow zones, like where this falls over the forehead, the bottom of the chin into the neck, where the armor overlaps. Anything where something overlaps is a great place to put a shadow. Underneath this like tunic here, great place to put a shadow. I think you've made good decisions like on where to place your shadows. As far as like highlights go, I think it's like, you know, always an easy trick to put some highlights on the pieces that are armor. So you can pick like a light source, like maybe it's coming, I'm just gonna do like it's coming down from over here for sake of ease. You can always add highlights to pieces of armor, especially where the armor like reaches a point is always a good place for it. Just to sell sort of the illusion of shininess, if you so desired to do so. Like this would be an easy spot on these things would be a good spot. If you just want to add those like points of interest, you could do that. But I think primary thing you should do is focus on learning just like general bodily proportion, and search up like, you know, human proportions, reference body proportions for artists, like stuff like that. And I think that will go a long way for you. Just give it some practice, try to apply it to your own work. But I genuinely think that you're off to a great start here. I would say just keep it up, keep going, keep practicing. And I think you'll be able to make some cool stuff. Okay, moving on. Ginny Grotesque. I chose these two pieces from the last Inktober. Let me just go ahead and put them in here. And then I will read what you said. Okay, if I had to be specific on the first one, Girl with the Moth on Her Eye, I was practicing line art. I never do line art. So if I could get some advice on that, line weight, shading, patience, etc. Also, I think I have some facial anatomy issues with this one, but I'm less concerned about that since I draw faces all the time, but any advice is appreciated. On the second one, I was practicing coloring because I never color my work. I was also practicing backgrounds, weird posing, line art on the character, and composition. That's a lot to practice in one drawing, so good ambition there. I think it was too much to practice in one piece and it suffered for it. Well, see, you knew. I think the worst offenders are my composition and posing, though, so I'd like a few tips on those specifically. If you see anything else I might need to work on as well, I'd love to hear it. Thanks for the critique. Sure, we can talk about this. Line art is one of my favorite things on the world, on the whole world. So I would love to talk about some line art. I think generally speaking, when it comes to line art, I like what you did where you tried to go thicker on like the undersides of the hair here. I think that's like a good instinct because that's an area where like shadow would be. And oftentimes you want to do thicker line art where there is shadow. Let me see if I can. I'm gonna open up like a piece that I've done for an example. Maybe I'll open the poster I did for ZenkaiCon. Let me see if I can locate that real quick. Here we go. We'll put this in here because I think this has good line art examples on it, and we'll bring it in. That's not it. Copy, paste. There we go. Okay, so I think one of the main things that you could benefit from in your line art is knowing better when to go thick and when to go thin. I have general rules that I follow, and I will show you here by looking at David. Any shape that is like a large external shape, like it forms like the bounds of a shape, I would consider it to be like, let me just go ahead and drop my stylus. I would consider it to be like this arm, I consider a shape. The torso is a shape. This kind of whole torso arm situation is one shape to me. The legs exterior is a shape to me. The hand shape that's like this shape. It really helps your shape language if you focus on these big shapes and then make those. Oh, hi, Jenny Grotesque. You made it. You didn't miss your critique. I literally have just started. I've started on the line art bit. And I was just jumping into how I go about thinking about line art, which I think is a helpful way to do it. Yeah, anything that's large and shapy and like external on the piece, I tend to try and make thicker. So you'll notice these lines sort of all the way around on these big shapy areas are very thick comparatively. And then when you get to anything that is on the inside of a shape that's not like a big separating line, that has more detail to it, like this bit and this bit, I make all of these lines thinner. For instance, I might do something like, let's see, how big is this? I'll just use a big honking brush as an example. But let's say I did the outer line with like a size 20 brush here, and it's like this. This is just like a random shape, like a random shape challenge. And this is what I use for like the outer line. Sometimes I'll go in and like even fix a little bit, like add a little more shape to the line itself. Or I'll go in with an eraser and carve out the line a bit if I want it to come to like a more certain point. But I kind of treat these lines as shapes of their own. Then what I might do is like click my brush down a couple points to like size 15, and then go in and be like, okay, now we'll take this brush and we'll do smaller details. Then of course is got his pants on over his whole body. These are jeans. These are also jeans. Got an ear. And see, I went like a little thicker on the ear because it's isolated and it's its own shape. So it kind of becomes an instinctual thing, but from a general perspective, and this is an exaggerated example, going thicker around these big shape areas and then thinner on interior details will give you a very nice and clean inking appearance. You can see that I've done it here for Julia as well. This big shape of like the head and the hair is quite thick on the ink. And then when you get in here into this stuff where it's all kind of jumbled together, I've gone much thinner so that the details aren't getting lost in the midst of like the folds and everything. And then once you're back here on an external shape, I'm thicker again. I'm thickening up. Same for me here. Big thick lines on this outer shape, details on the inside are much thinner. But you'll notice that this line here is a bit thicker because I consider it to be a separating line. It's separating the shirt from the pants. And so I want it to have a bit more noticeability to it. And also since that's like an area that would have a very notable shadow, it's a little thicker as well. But the general rule is that I would go thicker on the outside, thinner on the inside, and thinner in areas of high detail, thicker in large shapy areas. So I hope that is helpful. And I think like applying it to your piece here, like I said, I think before you got here, I like your impulse to make this part of the hair darker because it would be in shadow. I do think though that the entire like outer hair scenario could benefit from being a bit darker. This is going to be like a real hasty ink job here. But just to kind of show. And then I would maybe go like thinner. I can't really erase out your inks, unfortunately. But I'd go thinner on these like interior details, like this strand could be thinner. This strand. You know what I can do? I could just do this. We're going to thin this out a bit using a different brush that works better. But I do oftentimes like this go in and readjust my lines after drawing them to give them like the shape and feel that I so desire and crave. And then, yeah. This is kind of an extreme example. I probably wouldn't go this thick on the outside, but I was trying to match your thickness there as well. And then you could like go a little thicker here because the hair is like separate from this hair beneath it, if that makes sense. So it creates more of a separation there. You kind of did that over here actually, quite nicely. And then I think this line could be... And I would probably go thicker on like the shoulders because that makes a big shape as well. Something like that. I hope that is helpful to you. Let's take a look at the other piece real quick. This one you were asking about like composition and like pose and stuff. Let's see. Let's see what you were asking about. Color, this was the one where we were practicing too much. Coloring backgrounds, weird posing, line art, and composition. Composition and posing are what you really want tips on. Gotcha. Yeah, I think it's tougher when you're working like in a physical medium, but I usually like to try and block out my composition in grayscale first. Because I think you'll notice if I go black and white here, if you'll allow me to go black and white here, these foreground trees, once they get up among these other colors, they get very close in value to the other part of the background. And so it's flattening the image out, which is why I like to do a black and white grayscale thumbnail before I commit to a composition, typically. But like in this case, I'm going to keep it in grayscale for the example here. I would probably go quite dark on the foreground trees as a framing element. And I would probably have them extend off the page to act as like a frame for the character in the middle. I would almost probably be tempted to go even black for this. But you can just see that by making them dark gray, now all of a sudden they stand out from the background. This one's still getting lost up here, so I might even have to go darker, like I said. I think I will, in fact, go darker. I think I'll go black there, because this stands out nicely, but then this doesn't. So I would probably either make the whole thing black or darken it as it goes up. Which, again, more difficult to do in physical media. Let's get that out of there. This already serves to like separate out the framing a bit. And make this tree a bit wider, I think, as well. Maybe have another bit of tree over here. I'd probably actually just fill in this entire area, because I think it's detracting. It's drawing attention away from your subject, which we don't want. And you could have some, you know, some branches. You want it? So that's a little compositional trick you can do. I would probably also then, if I were doing that, I would darken this area as well so that it's not being distracting. Because you don't want anything too bright next to anything too dark, or else it's going to draw your eye to it. And right now, the brightest part is this, which is what we want. Having this part down here be the brightest is going to draw the eye directly to it. Then what I would probably do is have the moon be extremely bright, because the moon is extremely bright. It's likely to be the brightest thing in the image, so I'd probably go white for the moon. And then I think that's looking pretty good from a color value standpoint. Might go like a little darker on these trees, or maybe a little lighter. No, I'd go a little darker. Darker. Yeah. So just from like if we zoom out here and we look sort of with and without, you can see how your eye is, when we add these compositional elements to the same exact image, how your eye now becomes drawn to the moon and to the character. This also gives you an opportunity to highlight the character where the moon would be hitting her, to draw her, to make her more apparent as well. You could add some like highlights. Add some highlights, And this is just going to be for a quick example here. We're going to tone that down a bit, but highlight the character with some moonlight to like bring her out more. Might have to change the ground then to make it a little darker, but you get the idea. You could also darken the ground like around the ground, some around ground. Make it a little darker as it recedes away. Again, not easy to do in physical media, I understand that, but these are things you'd have to think about ahead of time, which is why, if it were me, I would do a compositional thumbnail. You know, even if it was just as simple as like, okay, it's going to be tree, and then it's going to be like sort of a mid-gray. Moon's going to be bright. There's going to be a hill that is lighter than this gray. Probably not that light. This is why the thumbnail is helpful. Then there's going to be some background trees and bushes that are like a little darker. I'm on the wrong type of layer. That's why this is not working properly. There we go. That makes more sense. I'm just like a smart guy, I think that's generally what we got to take away from this. Then there's going to be like the figure is going to be like here. And there will be some darker stuff like this. So, you know, even just something like this, I think is very helpful to do, just to give you like an idea of what you're going for ahead of time. And as for the pose, that's a really tough pose. to nail down because of the weird perspective. So I would just try to find like the best reference I could. Let's see, laying in grass. See if we can't find some laying in grass imagery, because I would not want to go after this pose myself. What I'd probably do is find a pose example first, and then use that to base my piece around so that I don't have to figure it out all myself, because it's like impossible. So for instance, there's one right here. You can see that this person's obviously laying in a different direction, but it's a very good foreshortened pose. So I'd probably like base the character on this pose just for sake of ease, and then base the hill, angle the hill similarly, and then compose around it. That's something you can do as well. So hopefully that is helpful. Let me turn this layer off. And good luck with all your art stuff. We're gonna move on to the next one. Let's see what we got. Eye of the Basilisk. Use the Tortoise Man and the most recent of the Blonde Lady. You got it. This Tortoise Man is so sick. Excited to see him. And then we got the Blonde Lady. All right, let's see what you have to say here after I take a sip of my tea, which is already cold. Okay. I did a fair amount of D&D art practice for last year, as the characters are good inspiration. I tried to put them in settings that felt fitting and try some newer things with light. I did the last one most recently after some studies and definitely feel I've improved. I'm currently unsure where I could go since I lost my groove. Thanks in advance. I totally get that. Losing your groove happens to the best of us. Well, let's just jump in. We'll do like some general critique then. I really like this Turtle Man. I think you did a great job here. I don't have much Turtle Man related critique. Because I think he rules. And I like the lighting you did on this one as well. I feel like it really sells it. You got kind of a very nice glow effect going on, and it's casting like in the right areas as well. You might be able to do like a little bit of harder shading around sort of the back end of your turtle here. If we just want to do a quick multiply layer. And of course we got to check our values here. Yeah, I do feel like it is nice that the turtle stands out so much, but I feel like as stuff recedes away from this light orb, you would probably get some darker bits back here and like underneath this where the fabric is overlapping. And then like as the fabric turns away from the light, you'd probably get some dark bits that would then get light again as it curves back up and hits the light once more. You actually indicated that right here. In this spot. But I think you could afford to go a little harder on that. And then like the legs as that are not being seen by the light down here. Like this part would be angling away, and the top of the foot would be getting hit. Sort of like this. So just some like things you could think about in terms of light and shadow. And then like the staff is a good opportunity as well, because it'll be like hitting and then like gnarling sort of away, and then this part would be hitting and then it gnarls under, and like this part would be hitting, and then as it goes it would just kind of get darker and darker. So just a couple little shading things you could do to make it a little more convincing. But let's take a look at this one as well. I like this one a lot too. I think main thing I'm noticing that jumps out to me, the arms crossed pose, I think you did a great job with. That's an exceptionally tough pose, especially like at this angle with the shoulders and the arms and the fingers and everything. There's a couple of like facial anatomy things that I think are tripping me up here. And I think this is probably a great opportunity to do our cover the eye game. Because I feel like this eye on the far side is a little too high up. And so we're gonna do like a test here. If we cover the eye up, and then I'm gonna draw where I think the eye would be based on not being able to see it. Let me get my drawing thing here. So I'm thinking if the head goes down like this, I think the ear might be a little placed a little bit high up as well, but then we got like the nose is like this. Then I would say that this eye would probably be fairly foreshortened down this way. Not that much, like this. Maybe something like that is what I would think. And then eyebrow. Cheek. Head. So that would be my thought. And then if we take this off, yeah. So you can see comparatively to sort of the angle of the eye, yours is a little bit up and rotated. To sort of the expected trajectory based on the angle of the head. So I think like with the angle you chose, and I think nostril as well. Nostril would be more up this way. Because everything is like angled around like this. And so you just have to kind of keep that cylindrical head shape in your mind. Because then this also means that the mouth, I don't think you angled as well. It's like a problem that many artists have, and I also have it myself, is that sometimes you'll angle the head, but then because your brain is so used to seeing faces straight up, you still draw the facial features too upright, even though the head has been tilted and rotated. And it can be kind of like fearful to go all in on the correct rotation. But with the mouth as well, it would be, you know, they would have to follow that same rotation. So something more like that, I think would do it. Yeah, there is a tip for ears. I do think it is the ear tip hits the bottom of the eyebrow. Let me look in the camera. Here's my eyebrow, here's my ear tip. Yeah, eyebrow matches ear tip. And then I think ear usually goes to like the nose. It's like a cylinder from top of ear to bottom of ear, goes like across your eyebrow and nose. Something like that. So that's a good general thing to keep in mind. Let's see, ear to eye ratio. Here we go. Now we're cooking. Now this is an image right here. Look at this guy. Yeah, it's got the tip of the ear kind of cuts right through the eyebrows. And then the bottom of the ear kind of hits the bottom of the nose, generally speaking. And fits of inspiration, you are correct. If you angle your head upward, the ear appears lower, as you can see on my ears. If you angle it downward, the ear appears higher. And since on this image, the head is angled like this, it's up and tilted. But I think the ear would still maybe go down just a touch, just a titch. Yeah, but I think that's it really. It's just like some minor facial structure things that you can work out just with practice. But I like the rest of the piece. I like the pose you got here. So great work. And we will move on to the next one. Put that all in there. Okay. It's already after 5 o'clock, huh? Cool, man. How many more do I have? Holy. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. No one can tell me I'm not doing great. Xandru Burt, you're next. Let's bring in your pieces. Always love seeing your work, Xandru Burt. It's very cute. Discord, paste it. Paste it. I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose it. Nothing is working. There we go. Didn't want to do that. That seemed rude. All right, here's one. Here is two. Scissor. I'm doing great. Okay, here we go. All right, first is a digital piece of Xandru Burt with a snail. The flower bush in the front right is giving me values trouble. Yeah, I could see that. The second piece is traditional markers of the Pokemon Scizor. My goal for the piece was foreshortening. I do think I achieved it with the front leg, but the back leg isn't nearly as pushed. Yeah, totally. Yeah, we can talk about that. Let's first take a look at this piece where you said you were having some values trouble with the front bush. I do think the front bush is a little bit difficult to, because it's so soft around the edges, a little difficult to distinguish as being in the foreground. I would normally lean towards darkening foreground elements. Let's check the values here. Yeah, the values of this bush are the exact same as the values of the bushes in the background. So what I would do is I'm just gonna like kind of arbitrarily decide where this bush is. We're gonna copy paste. We're just gonna make this darker. Might even need to be darker. It's a little tough because there's also some really dark elements of the background as well. That's not what I wanted. I mean, that's one way to see it. We could make it way brighter. Maybe that's the way to go. But I think that draws too much attention. I think I'd probably almost be more inclined to just go really dark. And then maybe I would, let me just try my best here to extract the background. I do think this is a classic case of sometimes you just gotta push and pull till it works. Because I'd probably go lighter here. That's not working. It's because I'm foolish. Let's try again. Maybe go lighter here. To get values like more like this. I feel like if the bush is going to be in the foreground too, you might need like other foreground elements to balance out the composition. Because having like one bush in the foreground is kind of feels off balance to me. But you maybe could have another bush. No one says you can't have another bush. Don't let anyone tell you. If you wanted to have like another element like this. So it kind of feels more like you're peeking between the bushes and seeing Xandru here. I'm gonna cover up some of your bush details here. I apologize. Yeah, you could do something like that. I don't know, this is not gonna look right with the colors turned off because I just did it in gray, but in grayscale you can kind of see what I mean here. And then you could just push this around. That needed to be lighter, you could make it lighter. Yeah, I just think values wise, it makes it pop more. I do like the dark background though. I feel like it loses something. That's a tough one, Andrew Burt. You know what I might do? What I might be inclined to do is just not even worry about the bush. Just like make it part of the background. And then just have Xandru be in the middle foreground. Because I like the vibes of the dark background. That's a tough one. I think what also could help is maybe going for a little bit stronger line clarity on like the central figure. Because it's got kind of this, it almost has with the brush you use like a, what's it called when you got like the red and blue and they're like slightly pushed to the left and right? And so it gives it that kind of like chromatic aberration. It's almost got like a chromatic aberration effect. I think because of like the lines are, you have these like big lines, but then you can kind of see through them. I think maybe if you just went for like a little more clarity, line clarity on the central figure, then it would make all the fact that the background is so impressionistic, it would really like make the two feel separate more so. Because I do really like the background, but I think that something's getting lost just in like the clarity perspective of like this central part. Let's move on to the other guy here, the foreshortening fella. I do think you did a good job foreshortening the front leg here. I think for generally speaking, for foreshortening, my impulse is to say go bigger than you even think you should. And then like, again, it's like tough because this is sort of digital artist advice, but if you sketched it digitally or something, let's see, we got the head here, the body here, and the sort of thoraxy thing here. Because if it were me, I'd probably be like, let's go claw forward too. And then just remember that everything is cylinders. Like we're all just made up of cylinders. You could go like big claw. And so just remember if the cylinder is coming towards you, it's going to get like bigger. Big claw, big leg. And then this one's like could be really going far away, so cylinder gets smaller. You could like really crank that thing back there. it's kind of tough with the back leg because you don't want to have it be obscured by the body. Because it's like, where would it come out from? It comes out from like over here. So you could kind of tuck it up back this way, like the leg is raised. But you don't want it to create like visual confusion. It's in a bit of a tough position, to be honest with you. So you could try to like obscure more of it like this to show that it's like tucked back behind the body. And then you got the wingies. The wingies are cool. I do want to say too, if I didn't already say it, I think you did a great job with this piece. I think it's really sick. But back leg and back arm is like, that's a classic problem. Because then it's like, where does back arm go? You know? A tough one. Something else you could do maybe is go even further, like knee up. This is kind of similar to what I just showed, but you could go like knee up like this. Because then it kind of fills some of this existing space we have available. And gives it a little bit more of like an attacking vibe. Where else could we put it? We probably can't put it back this way. That'd be crazy. If it were me, I would probably be tucking the leg kind of like this to try and foreshorten it. Because if you try to foreshorten it in the other direction, it's going to look like he's doing a split. And it's also getting like lost in this arm. So yeah, I would probably try to go for some sort of like leg tuck situation. Because I think when you're thinking of like foreshortening, you got to think not only of the like mechanics of how to make it look like it's coming at you or go away from you, but also just compositionally, what space do you have, and then pick the pose to best suit the space you have available. And if it's back here like this, you can also like darken it so that it's like pushed backwards compositionally. Speaking, you can darken like the back arm more, which you did in your piece, by the way. So you already know this, but for other people to know, make the stuff back there darker and it will look like it's going further away. Cool. Thank you, Andrew Bird. As always love seeing your work. Let's move on. We got Reiko. Let's bring these in here. Copy image. Copy image. We got some fun expressions here. Oh, you got skeletons. You've been drawing skeletons. Doing your homework. Love to see it. Okay, I'm currently obsessed with character portraits, trying to get them right. My eventual goal is to get into a more painterly anime drawing. Example, Nashi Drop, one of my favorite artists on Pixiv. Let me pull that up to look at. Ooh, that's really nice. Painterly anime style is really cool. Let me like pull an example of this in. So we know what we're looking for here. This is an example of Nashi Drop's art. Really pretty. Very cool, like very loose line art style. Very loose. But then when you zoom out, it just works. That's always so cool to me. Okay, let's see. I'm currently working on more fundamental stuff, but would greatly appreciate if you have some advice to share with these goals of mine in mind, which are to get into more painterly anime drawing and maybe to draw manga style comics. Got you. So the first piece is art of an NPC for a TTRPG. To me, producing a finished drawing is a challenge in itself, so my designs might be lacking, but hopefully one day I'll be able to focus on what's more important. And then 2 is a practical page. I alternate between study/copy pages and drawing from imagination to test myself. That's a great way to do it. This page was drawn from imagination. A critique on what I'm currently lacking and what I could focus on to speed up my growth would be greatly appreciated. Yeah, you got it. Sure thing. Okay, let's get this beautiful Pixiv drawing out of here. And let's get into the nitty-gritty. Starting with the first piece here, I think you got some really cool stuff going on character design-wise. Like, I like the armor and the canister and the interesting, like, briefcase luggage sort of thing going on. I think for me, the first thing I noticed, you got, like, nice line art, and you have nice, generally speaking, proportions. Like, really good job on, like, the legs and feet here. Like, feet going away at the 2 different angles, that's really tough. And also the backs of the knees, I think you did an excellent job on. I think we're losing a bit of the anatomy as we get up here. This is a really tough pose, which does make it challenging, and it's being partially obscured. But I think let's do this. I think the top half is like too short compared to the bottom half. It's looking a little squanched up there. Let's see. If the torso is turning, also it's going to be more slender up top because of the turn of the torso. So like one shoulder could be like down here, one could be up here. And then this is back like this, obviously. Yeah, I think the legs look really nice. So I got no notes there. But yeah, the top torso is definitely like a little too small. Probably would elongate that just a bit. And then I think also that the neck situation needs just a bit more of it, for example. Yeah, head like tilted back like this. Yeah, when you like turn your torso, see if I can do like an example here. If I'm like facing from you like this, get the chair out of the way for a sec. I'm facing away from you like this. Take my hoodie. I'm turning to look at you. Both, like, I can't keep my butt square to camera while turning this much. So like the butt's going to be in 3. Torso is going to be rotated so that you're seeing it more from the side. So I think the general advice here is, I don't need headphones. The general advice here is I think do some more gesture drawing. Gesture drawing is going to be a huge help for getting like poses that feel more natural, especially like, 1 minute gesture drawing type thing where you're just like going through them fast. And then just like anatomy practice of people in different poses. Let me get this out of here so I can see better. Because yeah, it's the anatomy is just not quite working for how the body would work if you were trying to hit this pose. But I really like your rendering and I like your character design as well. So I think you're on the right track for sure. And then if we're looking over here, these are feeling pretty good too. You got some good fundamentals up here with this head turn for sure. Like the way this eye is being like obscured partially by the nose. I think this up angle head could probably use a little bit of work. Maybe, I think the eyes are a bit too large and not quite centered. But this is all stuff that's like, I think you're on the right track. Like there's some really good stuff in here. And there's just like little things. I think if you just keep working from reference consistently, you'll be like in a really good spot. Oh, Reiko, you're in chat. You said, timed practice is my bane. Being on time stresses me out, but I really should do that from time to time. Yeah, I am sorry if it stresses you out. I do think if you can get over that like hump of being stressed about it, you can really make so much progress really fast by doing it with some sort of regularity. It made like a massive difference in my art journey. Like the times where I've taken like a month or so to like, every time I draw, I do like 10 minutes of 30-second gesture drawing before I start drawing. Like I just start noticing that busting out poses from my mind becomes so much easier because it like just gets ingrained in your brain because you've gone through so much visual reference and internalized it by drawing it. And so it just really helps. It also just makes you like faster and more you can kind of get where you want to go quicker, I should say. So highly recommend, but awesome work. I really like what you're doing with the shading too. I think that looks very nice. I think you're definitely on the right track. Okay. Let's hit the next one. We've only got a few more. I'm going so slow, man. I'm so bad at this. Next we have Bards Only. We got some comics here. Let's get them in here. That's a big comic. And then we got another one here. And let's see what you are looking for. Latias the Loveless in chat said, zoomed out thumbnail blob of people of references where you color out each large body piece has been really helpful for me. That's another really good piece of practice you can do. Is instead of doing like outlining and like line art, you do like large brush blobs of the gesture. I've done that a lot as well, and I also find that quite helpful. Okay, Bards Only. I'm still working on making comics. The biggest thing I continue to struggle with beyond figuring out a workflow that works for me is composition, namely placing dialogue and finding the balance between art and words, especially for wordier scenes. I totally get that. It's a problem we all suffer from. Let's take a look at the first page here. And we'll try to focus on the balance of dialogue and art. I think the one thing that I notice right off the bat is that in your composition, you've got a lot of unused space. Namely, like right over here, and then like all of this down here. And even this up here. You got a lot of real estate. I think for comics, one thing you can do is thumbnail out all of your panels ahead of time, like where your figures will be, and put all the words in first so you can know what space you have to work with for art. It seems like counterintuitive if you're like, well, comics are mostly art and then some words. But you really got to fit the words, like figure out where you're fitting them words in first so that you know what space you have available. And then you can like pick your composition based on your available space. I find that helps me quite a bit. I think this would probably be a good time to look at a page of manga page. And I will show you an example. of what I mean. Hold on, let me just find one that has lots of words in it. Give me a sec. Give me a sec. This is a good example here. This is even in Japanese. This is a panel from Yotsuba. But it's a really busy panel in terms of text. But something I think you'll notice is that even in like a large group scene like this, the artist manages to fit in all the characters that are important for this particular piece of dialogue. And you don't need like a lot of extraneous information or a lot of scene setting, because typically in comics, you'll set the scene ahead of time. You'll have like an establishing shot that shows like where you are and what's going on. And then after that, it can be very helpful to punch in like this. I noticed that in your page, you don't punch in a lot. You always have like most of their body in the panel, which takes up a lot of room and also lowers the amount of facial expression detail you can perceive, and also lowers the amount of space you have for word balloons. In something like this, we're punching in on each panel close on the character that needs to be seen for the context of the specific dialogue. And then as it goes through, you can see they're just fitting characters in between dialogue bubbles, wherever, like picking the composition based on the needs of the dialogue. And then as it goes on, you know, not every character is in every panel all the time. It's like punching in on the important characters, which can be very good for visual clarity and not having panels be too cluttered, but also then it gives you plenty of room for text. The other thing I was thinking about, one sec, let me regain my thought bubbles here, my thought process. I'm trying to see if there's like another good example of like here's a Jujutsu Kaisen page. And it's got kind of what I'm talking about here. This first panel establishes that Gojo is being a freak. And so you're like, okay, I have in mind that Gojo's doing some weird, freaky stuff and being a weirdo. Then after we see him full body once, now we're punching in on the characters. We're seeing only the top half of Yuji here. Gojo's just his face because he's saying something that's important to his character. Then we got like Megumi, you know, we're just seeing little bits. There's like no background in most of these panels. It's just blank or like a gradient with like a hint of what's there. But we're punched in on the characters who are pertinent to the conversation because we've already established a little bit up here and people will retain in their mind what's going on and then can focus more on the character interactions of the scene. So I think that kind of thing is very helpful. So look to existing comics and try to like redraw their panel structure. Even just like quick sketches, but like thumbnail panels from professional work, and then you'll start to internalize the way they do things and you can adapt that to your own work as well. I hope that is helpful. I think that applies here as well. Same stuff. But best of luck. I think you're making great progress. And keep working on comics. It's always fun to see your work. Okay, next one. Nobody Nemo. Thank you for hosting this critique. My main concerns about these two pieces is in composition and the coloring and rendering. Let me get these in here. This one's got... This one's got a sandwich in it. which is pretty sick. And then here. Okay, let's see what you got to say. Both pieces are following the theme of spring. The first is supposed to capture the vibe of a picnic, and the second is of a fairy character who announces the coming of spring. I want to depict a fantastical character in a mundane setting. Gotcha, gotcha. So you're worried about composition and coloring and rendering. Yeah, I get that. Let's take a look, I think, at this second piece here. Because I think this is one where I like the character and I like the setting, but I do think compositionally there's like some issues. Namely, that it doesn't feel like the composition like delivers on the like the promise of your depiction in what you said. Like you want to depict a fantastical character in a mundane setting. But as far as like the character's placement and stuff, I think there's probably some ways we could make it like pop a little bit more. So let's think about it a bit. One thing that I notice about this piece is that you got the character kind of off to the side here, but then also kind of up here. It's like sort of rules of thirdsing, but it's not quite all the way rules of thirdsing. It feels like it's not like fully planned as to where she would go. And so it leaves like a lot of space over here and down here that feels like it's kind of not being utilized. One thing that I would probably recommend to do, I think there's a couple ways you could fix this. Very simple ways, in fact. Let me duplicate the layer here. One way is you could just crop it different. You could put her in the middle and have like a middle composition here. So we'll take a look at that first. Put her in the middle, make her the main draw of the piece. I think that works just fine, and it also makes it look a little less lopsided. Another option you have, I'm always a fan of like a vertical composition as well. I don't know if it would work for this too much. Maybe if you went really vertical and punched in on something like this, but I think it maybe takes out too much of the setting. You could also crop out some of the bottom here and go for like a more horizontal piece. Which puts her more in like the rule of thirds. Maybe even trim a little bit more off the side. More in like a rule of thirds. You might then need to like do a little bit more over here on the right to sort of justify the extra space, but it does feel a little bit more intentional. Maybe it could also be more like someone looking down, so more for a shortened piece. Yeah, I mean, it is like from an angle of like looking down for sure. But I just think these are a couple ways you could take your existing art, crop it differently, and make it more effective to look at without like doing a totally different drawing, if you know what I mean. And these are just like little composition tips that are very helpful. I also, as always, recommend looking at professional work. If you can find good examples. I'm gonna just like show some pieces here. This is a piece from Alex Vede or Vede, I'm not sure. But this is a great example of like excellent composition where you got the character basically right in the center, but the composition serves a purpose to show you that the character is sort of dark, dingy, and small in the middle of this large and vibrant environment. So it draws your attention to this environment as juxtaposed from the character, which I think is what you were going for as well. You want to have a character that is very different from the environment. So you could go for something like this, where you have the character in the middle, but she's the one who's like bright and glowing, and everything around her is very dingy and dark, to give that kind of impression. Let me look for another example here of like a different type of composition. Here's one here. Mikhail Novak, which this is like an example of using the rule of thirds. Because this character exists sort of right on this thirds line here. And then on the other thirds line, it marks this, this building over here. But again, it gives the impression of a character out of place. You got like this character sort of scowling over at the foreground character. But the placement feels very intentional here. And so I think that's like the main thing to think about. Look at some of like professional stuff. And for the record, I literally just went on Pinterest and I typed illustration into the search bar. That's how I found these. Look at some work like this that really inspires you, and then literally just copy the composition. Like, don't copy the art, but copy the composition, the placement of things. Say like, okay, I'm going to try putting a character here and a building here, or a character here and another character here, or like a character in the center and then a big environment. And just doing stuff like that will work wonders for you. So hopefully that helps, and we'll move on. Okay, next we got Kit Talks. Let's get the pieces in here. I think I remember you from last time as well. I remember this character, in fact. And then we got this one too. All right, let's see what you said. First piece, I'm trying to do a slight bird's eye angle and conveying a chilly temperature color-wise. The second is more of a hobby piece with no specific technique practiced. Okay, gotcha. Let's take a look at the first piece first, because I think this is going to be... First of all, I think this is you did a very good job of doing a bird's eye view, like from the dome. It's incredibly difficult to pose a pose like this. I would definitely, if it were me, work from a piece of reference. It's not going to shock you to learn this. Let's see. I'm searching woman from above. And I'm going to try to find a piece of like a woman sitting from above. And if we can find something similar, we can then like compare it and see like where the pose needs working on. There's like a couple examples here of, I think, things that would be helpful. Here is, this person is not sitting, but they have a very similar shoulder angle and head angle to what you're going for here. And so I think this would be like a good place to start. See if I can find anything else. So we can just start with this for now. And then we're going to just take a look. And we'll notice like the differences is like the main thing. This is like a good way to practice. And I do this all the time when I have the time to do it. So foreshortened pose, similar angle of these two people. First thing I'm noticing is that the head over here is much larger because it's much closer to the camera compared to the shoulder. So if we compare the head and the shoulder width here, and it probably goes, out that way, we're seeing a much larger difference in the head and shoulders. So first thing I would do is probably try to make the head bigger. And then we got this sort of cylinder shape of the neck, which I think here you'll see yours goes more flat across. So we know we need to make it more of a cylinder, of a downward cylinder. Probably make the head larger. And then looking at the shoulders, it looks like the chest maybe would obscure more of the far arm. So we can do like a general chest shape here. And it's like kind of cutting in front of this arm back here a little more. And then we got in this piece a bit more of the back is visible, kind of cutting in here. And I'm noticing like these lines, like these downward cylinder lines of like the pants, all of these indicating the depth. So I think if we have, you know, more lines indicating this like downward depth, that's going to be very helpful. And then I think your character is also missing sort of like the pelvis area here. So you'd want to account for a pelvis zone before we even start like getting into the legs. And that would probably actually be more tucked under like this, looking at this sort of reference here, where it's more like that. Yeah, and so just like redlining it, you can sort of see how the pose could be improved based on a piece of reference that you have. And once again, I do highly recommend if you're starting on a piece, maybe try starting with a piece of reference first and then adapting the reference to what you have in mind. And using that as a jumping off point instead of being like, I'm drawing a pose, now I'm trying to find a reference to match the pose. Like find a cool reference first and then be like, let me adapt this type of thing to what I want to do. And I think that will help you quite a bit. Hopefully that is helpful. We're going to go ahead and go on to the next one. Thank you so much for submitting your art. Okay, next we got Fitz. Let's get Fitz's pieces in here. These pieces look really sick. And I really like them. I really like them. This is tasty stuff. All right, let's take a look at what you said. For the first piece, I wanted to practice more painterly rendering again after trying cell shading for a while. I also tried to make the composition and posing / character interaction more dynamic, so thoughts on that would be appreciated. The characters are mages, and the blonde one was duplicated with a temporary spell. Classic. I'd also like to hear your thoughts on the vibes the two characters give off in this piece. Their names are Alpin, blonde guy, and Nil, dark-haired guy. Sure, we can start with that. I definitely get... I feel like you've done a good job here with characterization, assuming my reads are correct. But I definitely get the more outgoing, forceful, extroverted type from this character based on the way they are approaching the situation here. And I definitely get a more reserved and stoic vibe from this middle character, a bit more of a reluctant vibe. Perhaps more serious, more stoic, and a bit more bubbly, a bit more outgoing, and a bit more go get 'em type of vibe from this character. Thoughts about making the composition and posing character interaction more dynamic. I feel like you did a great job with that. I don't know if I have too many notes for you on this. I feel like this is really well executed work. I want to get in and look at your lines a little bit. It's cool. It's like it is like a paintbrushy style of inking, but it looks very clean from far away, which I find interesting. Oh, nice shadow color here. This like lighter lighter color in the shadows and around the edges. That's fun. I also want to say this is a good example for other people too. I love what you did with the hair shading here. The fact that it goes from this light color to the band of darker color before being a lighter shadow. There's a name for that. There's like a scientific name for that phenomenon that someone in chat will probably tell me what it's called. It's like the something point, it's basically where like a harsh light meets a shadow, there will be a band of darker shadow before the shadow is lighter. Like the darkest point of the shadow is like right next to the light part. There's a phrase for it. I'm just so trash at remembering what the phrase are. Is it termination point? Is that right? It's definitely a thing. I'll tell you that much for sure. But you executed it very well here. It looks very nice. And let's look at the other piece here. Great pose work here. Character design based on an object photo. I didn't render this one fully. Thoughts on design and color placement / values would be appreciated, as well as the overall translation of the object to the design, and appreciate hearing what sort of energy the character has based on this piece. Yeah, let's take a look here. The energy I get based on like the pose and facial expression is maybe more like ditzy, like a little ditzy, airheaded, naive type of character. I love this pose work, and we were talking about this earlier. I might end up critiquing your work less and using it more as example. But we were talking earlier about these diagonals. How if you want to push a pose, using these diagonal lines, these like changing diagonal lines, is a great way to do it. This was like one of the first things we were talking about today, and this is a very good example of it. You got the line going this way, and then this way, and then this way. It just makes for like a very natural looking standing pose, and also like it makes the character feel weighted to the ground. Like the character has actual gravity, and is like slouching in certain directions. Contrapposto, yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah. I know the things, but I don't know the terms. Let's take a look at, you mentioned the color placement and values. I think that they look quite nice to my eye. We can do a one of these. Yeah, I mean, I think the values look really nice. I think the dark of the hair really pops compared to the lighter values of the clothing. Draws attention to the face, which kind of has the lightest value. I mean, maybe the face is like close in value to the gold of the clothes, but it doesn't really bother me in color. I think this is quite nice. I don't really have any good notes for you in terms of like things to improve. I think you're already very good, and you probably already know what to work on. Probably maybe even better than I do. Sick characters though. Love the character designs, love the costuming, and the vibes of them come through in their poses and facial expressions. So I think it's great work. Awesome job. We will move on to the next one. We got Mojave Mailman. These pieces are from a multimedia Fallout project. Okay, we're going to look at this first one here. This piece with the hatching is really sick. I think the hatching looks awesome. And then we got the colored version here. Okay. They're from a multimedia Fallout project. They're basically the same, except I'm trying to add color, and I feel like I just can't get the color theory right. I can't tell if I'm at trust the process point or delete your art point. Okay, feedback on color theory, which also includes the values and the hatching. The last time I took part in a DrawClass critique, I learned a lot about color and hatching, which I've learned to continue to develop my style. That rules. I do agree with you though. I think the hatched piece is much stronger than the colored piece, and it is because of values. Olive is here, but she does have to go. I think you're losing a lot of the value work you've done in the hatching in the colored piece, but I bet that's fixable. I think it's fixable. Let's take a look. If we go black and white, you can see that you've got these like really cool highlights created from the places where you didn't hatch, and they get dulled down a lot by the values of the colors. As well as there's a lot of detail down here on this guy that is kind of getting lost, I think, with the color values. I do like the compositional choice here. I think this is really good. Let me move this over so it's not behind my head. I think this is really good at like highlighting the character. I might even be tempted to go brighter with the background. Olive came back. But I think this is a great composition. I love that. And I think the hatching is awesome. Let's see if we can't do something with the colors here to kind of like restore. Yeah, it's tough because it is like backlit. And so you would think intuitively that the character would be in a great deal of shadow. But what I might try to do, let's go back to black and white here. Because it's going to be hard for me to showcase because I can't really color over the hatching. So I'm just going to do it in black and white. Yeah, I think I might go even brighter here, utilizing the correct pen. Olive, you are making my life so difficult. So we're just going to do some examples here. And then this is maybe can be like contributed to the colors you pick. I think like when the hatching is really good, you really want the colors to go super simple. And maybe even like desaturate them more. Like I think saturating them too much is losing some of that cool hatching vibe. I would go for like very simple colors, I think. And then I think like this could be brighter for sure. All of these like spots here, I think could be brighter. Just because you've done all this good work. Yeah, it's a tough one to draw over because of the hatching. Maybe what I could do, did I draw directly on top of that? I sure did. Cool. Cool job, Jacob. Cool job, man. I'd like to take a look at the color choices. Yeah, this is kind of a blue right in the middle of the color spectrum there. My recommendation would be go lighter and less saturated on the colors so that you preserve more of the hatching, because the hatching is already doing so much of the shading. Like I wouldn't shade this. I would pick one blue. Let me show you here. I would pick one blue. You know what we'll do? We'll make this a multiply layer. And then we'll go underneath. I would just take the one blue and flat shade the whole area, because you are already getting shading from your hatching. Like I don't think you need to shade in the color and the hatching. So I think if you just go with the one color, and we'll just go ahead and do this to make it cohesive. And just leave it flat. Do you see like how in this top example, like how much of the detail of the hatching is preserved. And then down here, you're losing so much hatching detail. So I think the move is you already shaded this piece and you shaded it super well. So I think just go flat color for each area and then let the shading you already did do the work of shading. And I think that's going to like look a lot better, a lot stronger. Because I think you nailed it up here. And so, yeah, let that work you did do more work for you. Excellent job, though. Really cool stuff. Yeah, I'll also be excited to see the results if you post them in the DrawClass chat. Okay, moving on. Moving on. How did I do that? Moving on. Let's see. We got 3 more. We're so close. It's only been 3 hours. It's going to take exactly as long as I said it was going to take. Okay, this is from Penn. Let's see. Let's get this piece in here. This is a fun one. Shrink that down. The second one has blood in it, so I'm probably not going to post that one here, but we'll look at this one. I'm generally pretty happy with these pieces, more the first than the second, but I feel like I tend to sort of fudge anatomy when doing digital art, especially when painting and when I'm not directly using a reference. And so even after rendering, I feel dissatisfied with the piece. This happens especially with the face. Even when I try using construction and guidelines, they just don't look right, and I have to move stuff around a lot. I also feel like I get too lost in the weeds rendering and thus lose track of having good values. Other than that, any general critique would be appreciated. Yeah, sure. I do think you've done a really excellent job on the rendering here. Like the rendering is really cool and very like specific stylistically. Like look at the rendering on this hair. Good Lord. Very nice painterly technique. I like it a lot. And very detailed. I could see what you mean by like getting lost in the weeds. I'll tell you the thing that jumps out to me when I look at it though, is that the characters don't look like they're properly grounded to the ground. Like they look like if they were actually standing like this, they would fall over. As in like this character would fall this way and this guy would fall this way. So I think properly grounding your characters and counterbalancing their poses, sort of like we were talking about on that other piece, will make your final result like work a lot better for you. Because like in terms of painting, you're killing it. You're like a way better painter than I am. But I think the poses just need grounding. And the way to do that, what to keep in mind, is that whatever direction you go in with one part, you have to counterbalance in the other way with the next section of the body. So for instance, you got this fella on the right has like a up torso. And then you got a straight down, and I'm already like instinctively trying to counterbalance it. You got a leg that goes basically straight down, and then a leg that goes over here and is not quite hitting the same way. And so he feels like he's leaning this way. Usually if you're going to have one leg kicked out, you'd need to have the other leg sort of doing a number like this. Because this foot is going to counterbalance for this leg that's kicked out this way. So more something like this. And then the torso can lean to counterbalance this angle. So you got a left angle, you got a right angle, and then you got a head angle kind of going the other way. This is a very stubby person I've drawn, but you get the impression of what I'm after here. So basically you can make like whatever decision you want in terms of the legs. If we do it like the same way that you did it here, where this foot is going forwards and then this leg is going out like this. Make sure to plant the feet sort of so that they're on the same basic plane. Then you just need to make sure that the character feels planted and you're like counterbalancing the whatever you chose to do with the legs. And something that I do a lot too is I'll draw a character, then I'll look at it, and of course it's behind me again. I'll look at it and be like, it looks a little unbalanced, and so I'll just like literally lasso it and just give him one of these. Give him a little rotate until the feet are where they're supposed to be, and then like I'll adjust the other bit. I'll be like, okay, now is he leaning forward too much? Maybe I'll take this part, give it a edit skew. I could skew it this way a little bit, skew it this way a little bit. And you can like test out stuff like this until it looks like it's balanced properly and that the character wouldn't fall in one direction or the other. But yeah, I think like do some, you know, some looking at people standing there studies. Person standing. Find some person standing. Here's a great example that popped right up for me. And then do some redlining of stuff like this. And it doesn't matter how like, you know, accurate you are to the drawing. We're just looking for like torso's leaning this way. So it's going up like this. And then the legs are going down like this. And then the head is going more this way again. The neck is going this way. The head is going this way. So you got it going like this and like this. And just take note of the different angles that things are moving in. And then also just like where and how the feet are planted. And that'll be very helpful because then you'll start to internalize all that and you won't end up with sort of the floating character syndrome. But really sick art. I really love how it looks and I love the rendering style. I think it's great work. And good luck with your future art. Okie dokie. Up next we got Katara Takaran. Let me get this in here. We got some comic stuff. I love comic stuff. I love comics. Got this and we got this. Really, really interesting style here. It's cool. Okay, these are some of the world lore pages from my comic. I think they're pretty good at this point, but general feedback would be appreciated. I may go in and touch up some stuff yet, like finagling where the words go, etc. Mostly just looking for imagery, goof 'em ups, and clarity regardless of the styles. As a side note, the black speech bubble is intentional. The character is cursed and his breath is full of internal smoke. Yeah, that'll happen. For the story, I was using old manuscript style art as a loose ref. Okay, gotcha. Let's take a look. I do think this looks very cool. I love this sort of I'm not sure what you'd call the style, but the gold line art is very, very unique. And I think it works with like the black and gold really well. Oh, I see. They're like reading from a book. And it's like storybook style. I'm totally with it. I got you. All right. So some things that I notice. And you said you might like move and change text around a bit. I do think textually speaking, it's a little busy. And the text feels too small and like scrunched together. I like the most what you've done here. It's a little tough to kind of know what direction to read the text in, but I like how you've broken it apart so that it's like a sentence, half a sentence, half a sentence, one sentence, one sentence, one sentence. And they're all like separate. It just makes it easier to follow. When you start getting into like this kind of thing, it gets a little harder to look at, especially because of the way you're using the stroke around the text. It's like not quite big enough so that there's still these little dots of black that show through. And since the text is essentially dots of black that show through, these little dots of black that show through are like visually confusing for the eye when you look far away. It makes it very, very hard to parse. So I might say it would be good to make that thing larger, or just to like put them in boxes or bubbles so they can be like totally separate. I know that kind of will block too much of the art, but you could maybe get away with reducing the size of the stroke as well. That might also work. But I do think, generally speaking, the text should probably be a little bigger, just for legibility's sake. Just checking my texts here. It is time for us to get dinner typically. Let me tell Julia, you decide and I will tell you my order. But yeah, I think the art is really sick. I think the only thing I have a problem with is the text feels a little confusing. It's like in places like this too, where it's like here then here, but then it's like, do you go down here or over here? It could kind of go either way. And also, like, I would say don't be afraid to make some bits of text bigger too. Like, I would go, in exchange, they were permitted to live, bigger text right at the top. Maybe break this up into a couple sentences, and like staggered text blocks. Because you can always do something like this where you're like, let me just try to give you an example. This looks like it's very large. Where it's like, the mother strong enough to carry twins through the end of the world, ... I would like to center align this, please. And then just hit him with one of these, ... was, why are you so big? Go do the size I just did. Was deemed strong enough to raise the very sky. Something like this. Where you can just break it up and make it so that they're just like sort of staggered like this. Just so visually it's not like, it doesn't look like a block or a brick of text. But yeah, sick art. Love the art, love the storytelling, love the paneling. I think the only thing you might need to work on is like text placement and size. And I think like staggering text size, like I said, and staggering text placement will make it a lot more easy to like flow through. But awesome work, really like it. We will go to the next one. The last one, I should say. And then there's an update from Yena in here that looks really sick, so I'll probably share that too. Ribbon Road. Let's get your piece in here. We got a sketch. And some colors. A little spicy, a little smoochy. I'm going to quickly tell Julia what I want for food. 1 second. We're getting some ramen. Hell yeah. That's going to be a hell yeah for me. Good buddy. Is it a ramen type of night or is it a Japanese curry rice type of night? Only I can know the answer to this. I think I want the curry rice. Okay, done. Okay, let's see what you said. Things I am thinking about. Figuring out a reasonable composition when I started this pick, not assuming it would be a full enough drawing to require reasonable composition. Classic problem. How objects look when physically interacting with other objects. Yup. Adjusting a color palette to fit a specific mood. Hasty base colors added for this bit specifically. Showing strength in a movement, like how to have the right character's finger looking like it's digging in hard instead of just being there. Oh yeah. That's all good stuff. Let's take a look at some examples here. I will say, I'm going to show you this one incredible composition trick that they don't want you to know. If you've drawn something that you're like, now I have to do a composition. I like to take sort of a vertical, I'm a vertical composition guy, but you can pick whatever shape you want. Take a shape like this. Do a invert selected area. So you have just like a box. Take your drawing, I said, move it into the box. Now we're just going to resize and rotate it until we like it. I would maybe go like zoomy rotatey. That's kind of hitting for me a little bit. You can try zooming like way in. That's honestly kind of nice too. There's no wrong answers here. I kind of like the rotate though. I think the rotate's really good. Like I'd probably go something like that. And then adjust as necessary. But this is an easy way to recompose. If you've drawn a sketch, you can always just zoom it in and rotate it until it like fits your space how you want it to. I do it all the time with like every piece I make, basically. Okay, in any case, let's unrotate that. And you're talking about color palettes to fit a specific mood. I guess it depends on like the mood you're trying to depict, but like, I think generally speaking, you can focus on like, do I make it a warm tone scene or a cool tone scene? I think if it's like a, you know, a love making scene like this, I'd probably go warmer in tone. So you could try like doing like a over layer. You could like pink it up a little bit, reddish pink it up a little bit. Let's see, let's try like a overlay maybe. That's very reddish pink, but you get what I'm saying. You can then like adjust it. Or you can go like more reddish. Just warm it up if you so desire. And then like mess with the opacity. Because this is like very cool how you have it now, but you could make it warmer for sure. You could tint it a little bit. Gradient maps are also such a lifesaver when it comes to thinking of palette choices. Yeah, you can mess with gradient maps too. It like maps colors to different areas on your value scale. So you can like pick a bunch of colors on the gradient map and then it will apply them to the values that match. I don't know if that makes any sense. if you don't already know what it is. They're kind of complicated if you don't know how to use them, but they are very cool. As far as, let's see, like hand gripping, my answer is always just look at reference for everything in terms of like how to do. So you're talking about strength in a movement, like having the fingers digging in. So let's try to find an example. There's some great examples, believe it or not, on the internet. Let's get this one in here. Let's get this one in here. So check this out. If you're talking about gripping flesh specifically, something like this would be a great example. And you could focus on how the fingers are specifically splayed apart like this, and how the fingertips recede inwards. But I think the distance between the fingers really sells a grip. And then of course, like these shadow shapes on the skin are like what really sells it. Like having this very dark shadow right here, and then this gradient outwards, making these skin folds. Like to sell a grip, you got to sell what's being gripped. And that's how you have to do that. You gotta make these like ripples. But then there's also like gripping fabric. Which I'm sure we can find some fabric gripping. Who up gripping they fabric? This is a pretty cool piece of reference here. Lots of drawn hands gripping from various angles. And so you can study lots of stuff like this. Also take pictures of your own hand gripping. That's something that's very easy to do. Like put your hand at the angle you want, grip something similar to what you want gripped in your art, and then take a picture of it, and then look at that. And or even like superimpose it onto the piece so you can like see how it would look in context. But yeah, you can always take your own photo reference if you can't find the specific thing you need. Just set up your phone, put it on a timer, and pose up. Pose up, Buttercup. But yeah, I hope that all helps. This is a really nice piece. I think you did a great job with like the anatomy and structure and stuff. It's a pretty complicated pose, but I think you're selling it quite well. I think just some studying of like just study some grips, man. Study some grips. And I think you'll be set to go. Okay, so that is the last one. Thank you, Ribbon Road, for being part of the Draw class again. Appreciate all of you very much. I did want to take one little peek here at Yenna's little piece here because I love the colors in this. That's not it. Discord! Discord is freezing. It would rather freeze than have me copy an image successfully. Just paste it. Just paste. There it is. Check this out. I adore the way you did the background in this piece. That looks so nice. Like the watercolor shaped out like pagodas. Sailor Moon color palette. Looks awesome. I'm going to be stealing this idea for backgrounds. Because this is how I like to draw backgrounds. Very simple, but the texture makes it so nice. Really pretty. And great character posing too. And great composition. You got the Dutch angle. Really nice work. Okay, that's going to be it, everyone. Thank you so much for participating in DrawClass. I hope this was helpful. I hope you all had a nice time. I'm sorry it took so long for me to do, as always, but it takes the time it takes. And you all are very generous in your support, so you deserve the extra time. You get the extra time. But that's going to be it for now. Thank you all so much. And we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, everybody. See you later.